Welcome to part two. Thank you to everybody who likes and subscribes and share the videos. Don't forget to hit your notification button. That way you get your Porky fix straight to your phone. Save you when you're complaining. Pop, pop, bang. Julian. Yeah, I'm a bit worried about Bricktop. I think this Saudi thing, it's maybe driving them all potty because they all want to get their hands on the loot.
Genuinely.
There, though, is there any loot?
Well, this is what we're saying, isn't it? Where's the money? The money was there. Listen, you and I, all right, Mr. Negative and cynical and doubting Thomases, we're talking about the Saudi money in December, months and months and months ago, when everybody was getting aroused, thinking that we'd got Joshua and Wilder and Fury and Usyk on one big night in Saudi.
December 3rd.
December 3rd, the biggest event in the history of sports. We've got the 4 premier heavyweights. You'd got everybody drooling, dripping. And you and I were like, what a load of rubbish. And I think from memory, we said they might do Joshua and Wilder if pushed, but we doubt they'll actually do any of those fights. And guess what? There's no big fight in December.
No.
So where's the Saudi money? Where's the Saudi money, John Fury? Preaching about it earlier on tonight, I saw, and he's saying this, that, the other, and
about them being great people that don't really throw people off buildings.
Well, the less, we don't exactly have a great human rights record, depending how far back you go, but they certainly don't have one, do they? But ultimately, right, you can do what you want, but don't say it's for the fans, because that's what John said. I read his quote tonight. He said at the first part of the paragraph, he said it's about money. It's called professional, i.e. you get paid. And then there was a tag online at the end of it, and he says it's for the fans. Well, it's not for the fans who work in factories and work in tough jobs 40, 50 hours a week because they can't afford to go over to Saudi to support their favourite fighter, Tyson Fury. It's not for the fans. It's for the money only, nothing else. Own it, admit it. But I'm not saying there's no Saudi money. Of course, there's money in over there. But is there as much Saudi money as people think for the fights that we want to see? Because what's the next big event in Saudi Arabia? Fury and Ngannou?
Is that what the rematch clause, Julian, as well? If they take the rematch clause, will the WBC strip the Gypsy King?
No, they can do it once now. They've proven it. The same organisation that's giving a witness to the defence with Conor Benn, so telling him he's had too many eggs when, this is what they're doing. They're only
Charlo's over 2 years inactive. They've not stripped him, have they?
Yeah, and they won't even have that conversation. I think he's getting angry with reporters, Sullivan, now, isn't he? So imagine that, right? Charlo over 2 years. I mean, have we got no challengers? Have we got no contenders? There's no one else fighting in that division. It don't get much worse, mate, does it?
No, it's because they're doing what they want, aren't they? They're keeping Heyman happy, aren't they?
Yep, and that's what it's all about, mate. Titles for sale, reputations for sale, integrity for sale, everything's for sale. And you can actually buy anything, can't you? If you have enough money and enough influence, you can buy anything whatsoever.
Yeah. Kell Brook versus Conor Benn being talked about by Frank Spotty Smith Eubank, Emily's wife.
Frank Smith needs to talk about that, because I'll tell you what, every other fight that they've talked about for Conor Benn has gone. We had this, we had that, we had...
They're going running back to Kell to save the day, aren't they, again?
Yeah, they're going to a shot to bits.
After the shit on Kell with Crawford TV job.
Well, they'll do anything. They're not bothered. And they know that Kell Brook is shot to bits. Never mind what he did to Khan. I called that when I thought he'd beat Khan, but only because Khan was absolutely shot to bits. Brook's just shot to bits. And now what I want to know, right? I said this all the time about Conor Benn, right? It's like Tommy Fury, when Tommy Fury was saying, John, I'm going to get our Tommy to a world title. I'm going to get our Tommy to a world title. But every action that you do is the opposite of what you just said you're going to do. So with Conor Benn, I'm going to be welterweight champion. I'm going to be a world champion. It's all Conor Benn talked about for the last 2-3 years. And every single fight that they've talked about, middleweight fight, Eubank Jr., light middleweight fight against Kell Brook, Manny Pacquiao fight, all these fights they've talked about, none of them are going to take him to a world welterweight title, are they?
No.
Virgil Ortiz would, Boots Ennis would, even fighting guys like McKinson might take him somewhere towards a welterweight title. But everything that to say about Tommy Fury, the actions don't echo it. And everything that Conor Benn is talking about, the actions don't echo it. He just wants some big fights. And that might be because the money's running out, mate. He might want some big, big paydays, Mike Conor.
You really think that he's serving a silent man, Jules?
What I think is when we did the one the other night, I think the outcome is known by a very, very small few people. We saw the video with Frank Smith, didn't we, when he was laughing, smiling, joking, confident young man, talking about Conor Benn. His body language didn't change on Boxing Social. And then when he got asked about people saying the outcome's already known and Conor Benn's being banned, his body language and he's swallowed, his eyes furrowed, and he was like become really irritable and tried to hide it. Frank Smith knows what's happened to Conor Benn. He knows what the outcome is. Now, whether that means he's getting his license, he's doing a short ban, he's got a 2-year ban. I think he's been banned. But what I'm saying is, regardless, Frank Smith knows exactly what the outcome is with this Conor Benn situation. But was it the Mail, whoever broke the story back in last October, they 2 weeks ago said at the end of this week, the UCAD findings will be known. That was 2 weeks ago. And then we were told last week, definitely this week, we're going to find out at the beginning of last week. It's gone quiet. Why has it gone quiet?
Yeah, because it's not the outcome they wanted, is it? That's all we can assume, innit?
Yep. So my assumption is either he's either got 2-year backdate to March, which I hope it is, by the way, or it's not quite that bad, and maybe he's got 12 months from whenever he failed the first test, and he'll be fighting at some point this year. But I think he's banned, mate. Yeah, I do believe he's banned.
Yeah, well, it's his own fault if he is, isn't it? For being
It is his own fault. It is his own fault, mate, because you got to watch what you put in your body, haven't you? Be interesting to see the performance. Be interesting to see the performances now, won't it?
Well, we are out in him. Of course it will. Khan and Pac-Man. Is that any worse than Atom Barrera?
I've said this before to you 1,000 times, right? Tyson Jones
Why don't they leave it alone and walk away?
I've got no issue with people fighting who they want, as long as they're not for bogus titles, as long as the fighters are safe. If they want to tarnish their legacy, that's up to them. But the problem I've got is that's all we've got, isn't it? Legends talking about fighting or legends doing exhibitions, because we're not getting the heavyweight fights that we want, and that's frustrating. If Pacquiao wants to fight Amir Khan, I mean, he's currently serving a drugs ban, so again, I guess it proves that people who don't really care. But as I said to you, Russell, I've got to the stage now where we used to be really outspoken about this type of thing, but I think I'm a round peg in a square hole. I'm a bit of a dinosaur, and sometimes I just think people want to see it. People would like to see Amir Khan, Manny Pacquiao. I wouldn't, but people would.
Yeah, that's the nature.
I'm just going to put a light on, mate, and this shows our dedication that we're grafting at this time, mate, aren't
we? Yeah.
Darkness falls.
Reminds me of being in Armley with a candle in the early 90s. Pop, pop, bang. Joe Joyce, he's got Zhang, hasn't he? Has he got a lot on his plate with Zhang in that rematch?
We got to ask the question, haven't you? Right. When you look at Joe Joyce from his debut, or from the Olympics, whatever, from his debut all the way through to before the Zhang fight, he's getting like 0.5% better. But his style didn't change, did it?
No.
He never had any defense. I mean, everybody used to say that they made a joke of it. Thought it was funny, didn't they? The fact that he's got this Jason Voorhees, Michael Myers type, he can walk through anything. People thought that was funny, but people weren't laughing at his iron chin and his bone density when Zhang was cracking him every single time he threw a backhand. Nobody was laughing then. So I guess the question for me would be,
where were bone density?
Yeah, well, at bone density when his head were getting caved in, it wasn't there, was it? So the question for me is, will we see a new version of Joe Joyce? No. So did Zhang have a last brilliant hurrah at 39 years old and maybe he's got old overnight? Very unlikely. I think you'll see a similar type of fight. And I wouldn't be surprised for Zhang to do it again, because the one thing that you find when someone's lost the first fight so clearly, we're not talking about like a controversial decision, are we, for this rematch? When someone's been absolutely hammered and they go straight into immediate rematch, you have to say, well, what can they do differently? Because once Joyce gets in that ring the second time around, and if after 1 or 2 rounds quite early on he starts getting caught again, then not only is he in a physical fight and getting nailed, but the psychological impact and aspect of that fight comes in then, and his doubts will just cave in. We all saw Big David Price, didn't we, against Tony Thompson, second time around when we were getting pinged after 2 rounds, and third round he was hurt. And you just saw him, the fight just drained from him psychologically. He just went to pieces. And I think we might see that with Joe Joyce. If he starts getting nailed again quite early, which is bound to, because he can't block a shot. He only blocks shots with his head. I think you'll see him psychologically just deflate.
You see when Usyk fought Joe Joyce?
Oh, I've seen it a couple of times. I haven't seen it for a few years, but he couldn't miss him, could he?
He was target practice for him, wasn't it, Usyk? That?
It was like sparring. Yeah, it was like sparring. He couldn't miss him at all.
Did you see that sparring with Vladimir when they were all gasping, Johnny Nelson, and all that, not in mountains?
No, I've not seen that, mate.
They were all there. Dylan White, I think Dave Allen went up there, Richard Towers, all up there, and Usyk were getting ready for Olympics, wasn't he? And he stood Vladimir on his head, stood him on his head, and they were mesmerised, saying, "Who's this guy? Who's this guy?" Adam Smith was making a big noise about him. Usyk, he went on to win gold, didn't he? At heavyweight. Joshua.
Brilliant fighter, Usyk. But I'll tell you what's making me smile at the moment. I know you've got to sell a fight, but you know, like Bricktop, he's got to follow his fighter. Where he's like, I think Dubois is going to beat him. And there are people, if you look at the British media now, there are people who are really building up Daniel Dubois' chances.
They've got no choice, have they? They've got the noses in the trough with the rest of them.
And what are they watching? How do you come to that conclusion that he's got a chance against Usyk?
He's got 2 chances, and that's it. And one is just to get out of there, not get bashed up, and other one is get took out early. That's his 2 chances. That's what's going to happen.
People talk about that.
Because if he goes 12 rounds with Usyk, he'll never be the same fighter again.
He'll be wrecked. He'll be wrecked, mate. He'll be absolutely wrecked. And people talk about he's got a puncher's chance. So when was the last time Usyk got knocked out?
He's never been knocked out.
So
they don't get to him, do they? His feet are like, you know his feet. I watched a few of his rounds and I just studied his feet. And he don't really move that much, does he? He don't jump out at way. He's like online all the time, isn't he?
He just ever so slightly slides off the line.
It's just like a centimetre, isn't it? It's
brilliant how he slides off the line. I remember when he fought Anthony Joshua the first time, I did a breakdown on it on Instagram with a mate of mine. And I says, beat Joshua so easy. It'd be like,
we said it, didn't we, for weeks, didn't we?
Easy. Both fights, I thought he beat Joshua, no doubt about it. He'll beat AJ, no doubt about it. And I've got no doubt about it that he'll absolutely towel Daniel Dubois. He'll towel him because when you've got a guy like Dubois has got no defense, and let's be honest, doesn't look like he's got much of a chin, does he, after his last fight? No defense, not a great chin.
I
No
think
ring
Usyk's not seen Dubois' style.
Well, the thing is with Dubois as well, he doesn't look to have any confidence, does he? He's got that. We saw it against Joyce. He just drained his confidence, drained from him, punch by punch, round by round. We saw his last fight, he got out of jail. Yeah, fair enough, he turned it around, but his opponent was terrible little cruiserweight. But Usyk's just gonna hit him when he wants, where he wants. Jab, double jab, slide off, pop him with a backhand, hit him to the body, bring him onto the overhand left. He's going to do whatever he wants to him, and I think he's going to be about a 4 or 5 round fight. That
Yeah.
I don't think it'll be a long fight. I think he'll just sometimes
As soon as he homes in on anything, it's over, isn't it? With him, isn't it?
Yeah, he'll have radar, and he's not exactly got a smart fighter in front of him, has he? You know, I mean. Again, as I said, you got to say what has Daniel? It's not knocking Daniel Dubois. I hope he gets a great payday, and I hope he covers himself in glory. But you have to ask those questions, don't you? When you look at, I'll tell you what. If you look at just indulge me for a few seconds, guys. If you look at big upsets in boxing history, right? I won't go back too far. I'll look at Lloyd Honeyghan, Don Curry, right? Lloyd Honeyghan was undefeated. He was British, Commonwealth, European champion. He was #1 contender. He'd earned his right to fight Donald Curry. And Honeyghan was unorthodox. He was quick. He was slick. He was a really good fighter, was Lloyd Honeyghan, right? If you look at Buster Douglas, Mike Tyson, you got the things with Mike Tyson not really focusing, and you know his last couple of defenses he'd not quite been in shape in the rooms of imparting. But even though Buster Douglas had been beat by Tony Tucker, Buster Douglas, people knew were a useful heavyweight, didn't they? They knew he was a useful heavyweight with really good skills, heavy hands, beautiful left jab. Why am I saying this? Because when you've got big upsets in boxing, they don't always happen by accident. Sometimes you have the guy who causes the upset, who's already got some really, really good tools. He's got good skill sets. So you got to look at Dubois, and you got to look at Usyk, and you got to say, well, if Usyk has a bad night and Dubois has a really, really good night, what toolbox, what skill set has he got to be able to cause the upset? It's not going to be like a Don Curry, Lloyd Honeyghan, where there were rooms of Curry not making the weight because it's heavyweight. So there's going to be no issue with Usyk making the weight.
He's fresh, Dubois, and he's no miles on clock, has he?
Yeah. So it's just. There's no ground. Listen, I know we have a bit of jeopardy in fights. We have to have jeopardy, so else it wouldn't be worth watching. But there's no history or nothing in this fight what says he's got a cat in hell's chance. I don't think he's got a puncher's chance. He's not going to outbox Usyk. But the problem I have with this fight is when he starts to get nailed, he's going to go over. He's going to get caught. Thing is his last fight he got dropped, and we know Big Joe. He took a knee with Big Joe, right? I'm not knocking him for that, by the way. But with Usyk, you don't see the shots coming, do you? As you just said, he ever so slightly slides over to his right, ever so slightly slides over to his right, puts the left hand down the middle, and then he'll slide over to his left, and then he'll loop it over the glove. He'll never see the shots coming, and that's the problem. He won't see them coming, and he won't have any success either. So when he starts to let his own hands go, and he's hitting fresh air, or he's getting countered, he's going to tire so quickly as Dubois. I think he's going to get... listen, if I'm wrong, I've been wrong plenty of times before. I think he's going to get annihilated.
He'll drown him if it goes past round 8, Usyk, won't he?
I think he'll hammer him from the start, honestly. I think he'll hammer him.
It's like blocking tactics, isn't it? What they've done really with Joyce and Dubois, and how they've managed to get him in position, and Tyson with this Ngannou. And you've got Warren there dealing with 3 of them big fights. Bricktop.
Tactically, what Warren's done is he's played a hell of a game of chess, hasn't he? He's got all his pawns lined up. You got to take the pawns away before you get to the king.
Just got to ride the flak out, hasn't he?
Yeah, and that's what he's going to do, and he's going to just make some maneuvers and various other things. Will Usyk be next after Tyson beats Ngannou? I don't think he will.
What if Tyson wins but gets dropped? Is that cause for a rematch?
Well, what we saw in against Derek Chisora was he doesn't need to get dropped or hurt to get a rematch with someone Tyson, does he? He can fight anybody. Who knows? And Tyson might
Eric's
give.
fighting on Joshua undercard with Dylan White.
You don't know, do you? Fury might give Ngannou a real toweling. People might want to see it again. They might want to see him against John Jones, the other MMA guy. Who knows?
What do you see Big Malk and Daddy Don doing with Usyk? Do you see him changing it up?
No, nothing at all, mate.
No.
No, nothing at all, mate.
Where does Dubois go if he loses, and where's Joyce go if they lose? Does Dubois and Joyce fight again?
I guess with Dubois, you got to look at, are there any other big fights out there for him? You know,
Do you want Joyce fight?
Yeah. Do you want Joyce? Do you want Wardley? Do you want Fraze? Don't say you're not at that level, Daniel, because you're definitely at that level, mate. You're not. I've never thought it was world level. People will always throw a WBA belt at me and nuts stuff like that. And Frank Warren will say he's done this, he's done that, but he hasn't really beaten anybody, Dubois, has he? He's just beat some real ancient fighters who were not that great to start with. Who's he beat, Russell?
Yeah.
And why did he get a world title shot before Joe Joyce?
Madness, isn't it? Joe's tied in with that Zhang rematch, though, isn't he?
But before then, you know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
he was waiting years, wasn't he, Joe?
Waiting, then he fought big.
People behind the scenes were being looked after with other fighters, weren't they?
Yeah, I mean Dubois basically got hammered by Joyce, and then he came back and did a couple of gimmies, and he gets a world title fight against the Michelin man, doesn't he?
Do you remember when Howard Eastman were mandatory for Hopkins and Mick Hennessy sued him? And same way Frotch with Carl Zaggy, Mick went after him with lawyers, and I had to force their hand up last day. There's none of that now, is there? None of these new schools are setting out these promoters and sanctioning bodies, are they? They're not doing it, are they? They
just want to get in with them, don't they? They want to work with them. The Sam Joneses of this world who did a really bad job, didn't it, with Joe Joyce, and they just want to work with them for one or two big fights. And
you tried for Joe, but I think your hands are tied when you know what fresh on scene. You're a bit gullible, aren't you? I think you were chewed up by them all, wasn't he?
I hear that to some extent, but ultimately your fights are mandatory. Your fighter is a mandatory challenger, and you don't deliver him a title shot when you're actually mandatory. I don't know how that works.
Well, you force it, don't you? They have to go by the rules and give you it, don't you? If you
Send them a legal letter. Yeah, you send a legal letter.
What do you think Calla and Eddie do? They do it, don't they?
And rightly so. That's called batting for your fighter, isn't it?
So why didn't Sam Jones?
Yeah, so his fighter was mandatory and Sam Jones did nothing about it. So awful. You know what you got, don't you? Just wait a little bit. You'll get a shot and you'll get twice as much. And ultimately, we are in an age now, aren't we, where people turn down mandatory title shots. It's absolutely crackers.
Yeah, we ought to have Sam Jones on Porky's Corner, didn't we? And grill him, but he's got no knackers, have you, Sam? Hop, hop, bang.
He won't come on, and the thing is, he always comes across as quite a likable guy, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He's all right, but ultimately, he didn't do his best for your fighter, Sam.
Yeah, I don't think he did either. But let's hope Joe can turn it around.
I hope so. It'd be such a tough end or a tough stage at 37, what is he, 36, 37-year-old, if he gets another defeat when he was so close. Because he ain't getting his title shot then, is he?
No. There's more ahead of him. He might not even get a title shot, Joe, now. He might be too old. Yeah, he might just over up round at domestic level in big sellouts in UK.
He's a fun fighter, isn't he? He's in fun fights.
As regards his style, he's a big stiff. Let's have it right. His style is a big stiff.
Yeah.
It's Frank Bruno, isn't he?
I remember watching again back on the Dubois fight, but I remember watching the Joe Joyce Dubois fight at the time. It was during lockdown, wasn't it? And I remember thinking, wow, how we got to this stage, two really, really unskilled heavyweights. And I don't mean totally unskilled. That's, Joe Joyce, I know, is an Olympian, but the skill level was just not great at all. It was just like two big heavyweights. Neither were parrying jabs, slipping shots. There were no foot shuffles or pivots. It was just you hit me and I'll hit you. You hit me and I'll hit you. And I thought, wow, these guys are not great. And one of them held a regular world title, and the other one's on big headline fights. It's bizarre, really.
Yeah, when you look back at heavyweights from past, there's a run through these, weren't they? Riddick Bowe against Joe Joyce.
Riddick Bowe, he had some skills, didn't he?
Lennox or Evander Holyfield. Evander Holyfield putting it on him in round 9 and 10, going through gears.
Yeah, can you imagine that? Those combos that Holyfield used to let rip with. And I always watched Lennox fight. I still watch a lot of Lennox Lewis's fights. But I just remember when he did Razor Ruddock in 2 rounds, how sharp was Lennox and how perfect were his punches when he did Razor Ruddock. It was a real live heavyweight. He did him at Earl's Court, didn't he? And I just thought, can you imagine that version of Lennox Lewis letting his hands go today?
Yeah.
Dropping like flies.
Oh, he'd go through this lot like a dose of salt, Lennox, wouldn't he?
Nothing. They'd go through them like they were nothing at all.
I said, do you remember that Michael Grant who next big thing?
Yeah, he was unbeaten, Michael Grant. It was like, what, 6'7", or...
And they were saying that Lennox, he was like a Joshua type. One of them was saying that Lennox didn't fancy it and all that, wasn't they? I think it were an even fight, wasn't it?
He was a big guy, was Michael Grant, and who can forget the right uppercut that Lennox dumped him with to finish that fight? He dropped him a couple of times in second, didn't he? Then he literally just this short right.
Big American oak, Michael Grant.
Dropped him, felled him like a big oak tree, didn't he? With this massive right uppercut, and it's such a beautiful punch how he actually throws that shot. He just puts the glove round the back of Grant's head, pop, little inside dirty shot. It's a beautiful punch to watch. It really was a good fight, was Lennox.
Oh, he's up there, isn't he, Lennox Lewis? Top 5 heavyweight.
And people always say, he got knocked out twice. Well, sometimes fighters do, but they didn't repeat the trick, did they, the second time? And I mean, the rematch with Hasim Rahman, I don't know if I've ever heard a louder punch in my life than that right hook from Lennox in the 4th round. It sounded like a howitzer had gone off, didn't it? When he just fainted with. In fact, the right hook, what Lewis knocked him out with, he threw the fainted with the left like Carl Froch did against Groves, didn't he? In the second fight, he just fainted with a left, and then he just brought the right hook around, and it was absolutely savage. If anyone's not seen Lewis and Rahman 2, watch that fight. It's a beautiful finish.
Yeah, I was watching some Liston fights earlier.
Sonny Liston was a menace, wasn't he? He had a ramrod of a left jab.
That jab, man, Liston, nobody talks about. They all talk about Larry Holmes and Ali's, don't they? But Sonny Liston's jab, man, he were wrecking guys down with it, wasn't he?
Even though he knocked out Floyd Patterson twice in the first round, I think one of the problems with Liston was no one ever quite knew how old he was. And I think what they said, Russell, was when he won the heavyweight championship of the world, when he beat Patterson, he was probably a little bit on the slide, even by that stage. Yeah. I think the Mafia had certainly got hold of Liston by that point. They were controlling him, but they said he was still a good version, but he wasn't the kind of, 4 or 5 years before then, he'd been just wiping out the heavyweight division. But yeah, you're right. His shoulders were huge, weren't they? Sonny Liston's shoulders and back were absolutely huge. He was menacing, and yeah, that was a good fighter. And if whenever you see these great heavyweights of all time, top 10 heavyweights of all time, generally people have Sonny Liston up there, don't they? Is somebody who people rank, 7th, 8th, 9th best heavyweight of all time. It was a formidable fighter.
Yeah, he was Sonny Liston. I would have loved to have seen footage of him and Big George when they got at it. It's sparring.
Oh, that would have been some sparring. That would have been savage, wouldn't it? Big George, I mean, again, what a fearsome fighter. I mean, the irony is we call him Big George, don't we? He was 6'4" and 15 stone 3, 15 stone 4 in his prime. He'd be considered tiny today, wouldn't he? Or certainly not a big heavyweight. But Usyk's proved it, hasn't he? If you're good enough and you hit hard enough, you can.
Well, Usyk's a 16 stoner, isn't he? 6'3". It's big enough, isn't it?
Exactly. Look at Deontay Wilder. Don't people rave about Wilder? You know, saying he's the hardest hitting heavyweight.
Like an Ali type weight, isn't he? Usyk, in height and that.
Usyk's Ali's size, but Deontay Wilder was only about 212 pounds the first time he fought Fury. If you're good enough, you're good enough. If you're good enough, you're big enough. And I don't think Usyk, being the size he is, I don't think it's the biggest disadvantage. But we'll see if size matters, won't we, when Daniel Dubois fights him?
Yeah, if he turns Daniel Dubois on his head early, what are they going to do, man? Who's Usyk going to get next?
Well, what we'll hear is the morning after Fury will be saying, you know, once I'm done with Ngannou, I'm going to smash to bits the ugly, gappy-toothed Ukrainian or whatever he's going to call him. He's going to give him all this stuff, but it won't want anything to do with that fight.
You know what? When Usyk says balls on him as well, Usyk even went to war, didn't he, on front line, wasn't he? Usyk said, all right, greedy belly, 30%. Put balls on him.
I mean, it's so funny as well, isn't it? Greedy belly, that was just genius, wasn't it? That was just like, whenever you look at the comments now for Fury, everybody calls him Greedy Belly. That was a brilliant name calling.
Well, if it's the size of his belly, it's all gone to his back. He looks like somebody's sewn a rubber dinghy around his belly.
It's not great, is it? I wonder if he's actually training now.
Heavyweight champ looking like that. My mate Bunny will be doing cartwheels in his lorry going that M1. Wait your money at the moment, lad. Hey, heavyweight champ looking like that, man. What is all that about, Julian?
Be interesting to see what kind of shape he gets in for the Ngannou fight if it happens, won't it?
Hey, we'll finish off on this one then. What did you think to that scrubber getting the jugs out in ring after the fight?
I just saw a screenshot. Horrendous. Look, I said it before, didn't I? Is this where we're at? And before anybody jumps in and says, this isn't boxing, this isn't proper boxing, because you've given these, what they're called, misfits and YouTubes and all this rubbish, because not you, Russell, because the boxing promoters and everybody else has given them a platform, a lot of you people out there, a lot of your viewers can't distinguish between real boxing and that. They think that's boxing. So now we've got female boxers, and you've got the Katie Taylors of this world who are such dedicated, you know, and Camerons and, you know, all these powerful women, these strong role models. They've spent, like, starting, you know, with Layla Ali and the coal miner's daughter, Chrissy Martin, and Jane Couch, and all the pioneers of women's boxing that worked so hard over the last few decades to try and get some kind of credibility. And you just have some vacuous bubblehead doing that, and she just took him back 40 years, mate.
Big views it got.
Didn't look, mate. It didn't look.
Evil, is that where we're at?
Well,
we're doing that in ring.
That's where we're at, mate, isn't it? You know, I bet Inoue on the build up to this fight, some of the training footage won't have got the same amount of views as that.
I know.
The thing is, love, whoever she is, I don't know who she is. We've seen it all before. We've all seen a pair of them. It's nothing new.
I know. Why do that, man? Oh my God, Callum were loving it.
They would do, mate. He's not bothered. Cash, yeah, keeps them in the lifestyle to that they're accustomed. And then deep down, they probably say, "Oh, you shouldn't have done that. Really, it's a bad look." And like Eddie was dissing it, wasn't he? And Eddie was saying, "Oh, it's really, really bad." And I'm thinking, listen, You're all guilty.
They were part of the problem at the beginning. What's he on about? They started it all. Him and Juggy and Spencer Oliver.
That's what I'm saying. They're all as guilty
Well,
as
in on it from beginning. Now they're all roaring.
Yeah, now they're all stepping away. Now it's got out of control, and you've got £400. You know.
What about them two school teacher women who are going to go on it now?
I don't even know these people.
From different schools, they hate each other now.
I just see it come up on people's timelines or on my timeline, you know, as a metadata on YouTube, and I'm like, what is this? What must Tony Simpson think when he sat at home in Leicester and he fought the great Marvin Hagler and probably still, you know, doing a bit of labouring here and there, and he didn't make great money from his career, and he was such a fantastic fighter. What does Tony Simpson think when this stuff pops up on YouTube?
They were European champion, Sibo.
It was British, European, and Commonwealth champion, wasn't he?
He fought Hagler.
Hagler,
didn't he?
Fought Frank Tate, Hagler, Minter, Dennis Andrews. But what does Sibo think when he's just browsing through YouTube or online and that comes up? Someone on a big show taking the top off. What does Tony Simpson think about that?
I don't know.
I'd love to know what the Katie Taylors think. You know, like I said, the pioneers of women's boxing, the Jane Couchers. I wonder what they think.
They'll think, look at that scrubber doing that.
It's terrible, and it's bad. God, if that
imagine having a wench for a missus like that.
I'd say if that was one of my daughters, it'd be like, what have I done? I'd failed. I'd say I've failed. I have failed as a parent. I've failed.
I don't know. No, God, I wonder what Dripping Tap thinks to it.
Dripping Tap won't be happy about that, really. I'd like to know what the Dripping Tap thinks about Conor Benn. Not seen him on for a while, Sean.
I'll go see him tomorrow and get him on.
Called it, didn't he? He called it.
He got it from the beginning. He outfoxed all of us, the Drip.
He did the Drip.
He's still basking in the glory.
I said, you can't say that, mate. You can't say that. And then
he went, no, I'm telling you.
He did. He's, you know what? I've been in boxing for such a long time, and I'm embarrassed that I never saw the signs. And the Drip nailed it straight away. He said, look at his jaw, look at his body. He says he's juiced. Ben's juiced. He called it.
Drip don't trust anybody. It's right hard to get to know, man. Unless he's really weary at first. Drip's having none of it with Conor Benn. He's like, nah, I'm not having it, Porky.
He wasn't having it, worry. He didn't. No, he won't back down either, would he? He wouldn't have it when you tried to, you know, a bit of parliamentary procedure. He wouldn't have it, mate. Would he's like, no.
Yeah, he will. Well, listen, thanks for coming on, Julian.
No worries, Russell. You have a good evening, pal.
You take care, mate. Bye.
Thanks for talking to me, mate. Cheers, buddy.
Cheers, mate. Well, that was Julian. Enjoyed that chat. Well, I'm chilling here with my dog. Right, we'll get these videos out then. Pop, pop, bang.